Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Kyle Henderson along with Tony Sukalis. Today, we're talking about the 12 summer arrivals that are coming into the 2020 season. Really exciting group. There was obviously all those early enrollees that checked into Alabama. We never got to even see them because of the situation going on in the country. Missed spring football, but there's a lot of guys, a big time talented group coming in this summer as things get started. And we'll talk about each of those 12 guys that are coming in the summertime. And the first is Brian Branch. Tony, you had an article recently about Brian Branch, very versatile player. Why don't you talk about Brian Branch?
Brian Branch is a kind of a ball hawk, and he's a guy that has amazing hands. I mean, like I don't know if you've seen the one-handed catches on YouTube, and I mean on Twitter, and yeah, I guess YouTube probably as well.
Everywhere.
This guy can like pull. He could be an elite receiver the way he catches the ball. So I think that's something that they can utilize. He's got good coverage skills as well. When I talked with him, he said that Alabama was looking at him not only at the safety position, but also out of the star position.
Wow.
And those are two spots where Alabama, needs to find a starter.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure if Brian Branch is going to step in and start. It's really kind of hard to do that. But he's a Rivals 100 kid, a guy with a lot of talent. So I think he could definitely see the field pretty early, and he'll be in competition for one of those two spots. And there's legit openings. It's not just like he'll have a chance at some of those. And he's just, to me, he's a versatile kid, well-rounded guy that can contribute in a lot of ways, probably contribute, as a kick returner too, if they wanted to. I mean, there's a lot of options there as well, but he's a guy that they can do a lot with. And I expect him to make some noise.
When I look at Alabama's defense, that's where my question marks are, is in the secondary, because there's guys returning, obviously. I mean, it's Alabama, but, there's not a lot of proven guys back there. You have Jordan Battle coming back. You have Patrick Surtain. But a lot of the corner position, like you said, it's not set in stone just yet. The safety position, we have to see how good Daniel Wright is. So, when you're looking at a player like Brian Branch, he certainly could come in. He might not start. He's not going to start, in my opinion, but he could provide some great depth at that secondary position. So Brian Branch, certainly a guy a lot of people are super excited about. The next player we're talking about is Javon Baker, a 4-star out of Georgia. Now, I have to tell you a quick story. We went down to the Rivals camp last summer, Andrew Bone and I, and we saw Javon Baker. And this dude is a complete alpha. This guy is like, there's a line of like 15 wide receivers. He keeps cutting in front of every single receiver and like getting reps every single time. Got a little chippy with some of the defensive backs just because he's that type of a guy. And nobody's talking about Javon Baker coming in because there's so many wide receivers, but Javon Baker is certainly a guy who can make a splash this year. What do you think about Javon Baker, Tony?
Well, he's also the highest rated of the bunch that's coming in. So it's going to be tough. I guess no one really got to build chemistry with none of the freshmen, at least, got to build chemistry with Mac Jones or Bryce Young. So it's going to be, it's going to be tough to work into the system. But if you're looking, from a long-term standpoint, I think he's definitely a prospect to keep to circle. He's really a talented guy, and it seems like another big play guy that they could really work with. He kind of just fits the mold of an Alabama receiver, and so I think he's definitely one of the guys of the guys coming in. I'd be really excited about him.
Jamil Burrows, 6'3", 320 pounds, defensive tackle. Yeah, same high school coming in. I mean, we've talked about some of these defensive tackles before, and the defensive line looks to be have a lot of talent with LeBron Ray, Christian Barmore. You can mix match a lot of these guys coming in, but Jamil Burrows is a guy who was a 4-star. What do you think about Jamil Burrows coming in, Tony?
Adds depth to that defensive line.
Yeah.
I mean, not only do they have talent, they now have a ton of depth that they can work with, and now it's becoming, because they have to play so many young players, it's experience depth. I don't know if Jamil Burrows is going to factor in right away, but he'll be able to kind of develop at Alabama, and you never know with some of these guys. He's a big guy, and physically he has a nice size, and you would think that he'd be able to fit in. It's just a matter of how quickly can he, pick up things this fall.
The more defensive tackles, the better, in my opinion. Those
Sure.
guys are so hard to get. So Jamil Burrows certainly an asset on the team. Now this guy is only a 3-star. He's a tight end as well. Caden Clark, and a guy like this, I personally don't know a lot about him. This guy could potentially have a chip on his shoulder if I'm coming in, because I'm a tight end. I'm a 3-star. What's kind of the backstory? He's had some injuries in the past. What's your take on Caden Clark?
So I think the big thing with Caden Clark is he's still getting healthy, I would imagine, because he had the ACL, MCL injury in October. So you got to think he's just now probably getting back. I think it'd probably be a great year for him to redshirt. There's some depth at tight end now because they didn't lose anyone. So I think, I'm not saying this is going to happen, and I obviously don't coach at Alabama, but it probably makes sense to redshirt him, get him completely healthy. And then, when you lose, what is it, at least 3 tight ends if you count Giles Amos. If you lose 3 of those guys, I think, that's when he can probably kind of fill that depth next year as a redshirt freshman.
We're talking about the 12 summer enrollees on BamaInsider.com. Javon Cohen is a guy coming in 6'5", 300 pounds. I like this guy. I've seen a couple of interviews on social media. I would be so excited to interview him. Of course we won't because he's a freshman, but looks like this guy is really fired up coming into the mix, and he's a 4-star out of Phoenix City, Alabama. What's your take on Cohen, Tony?
Yeah, a big get for Alabama and an Auburn flip at that, so it's always big if you can get one of those guys. He's been doing everything the best he can. I mean, he's reaching out to NFL players for advice. I'm not sure if he actually got that advice, but the fact that he's
I love it. Yeah.
Ambitious. He's looking for answers. He's really, he recently told a television station that he's looking to learn all 5 offensive line positions right off the bat, and he wants to be a young leader already. Like, he's already talking about being a leader.
I love his attitude. Awesome.
So, he's definitely a guy that, pencil him in for future team captain. I mean, the guy hasn't even gotten on campus. He's already trying to figure out ways to lead people that are, that are above him right now.
Kyle Edwards, he's one of the 3 very talented running backs coming into this class, out of Louisiana, 6 foot, 210 pounds. Our Tyler Waldrop for BamaInsider.com. He went down, interviewed him. What a quality young man, and his highlight tape is just bruising. I mean, all 3 of these running backs coming in, Jace McClellan, Rydell Williams, Kyle Edwards, each of them something special. Talk about Kyle Edwards, Tony.
Kyle Edwards is probably the bruiser of the bunch that they're bringing in. He's a powerful guy. You'd think that he's probably not going to factor in this much, or if he does, it's going to be on special teams. And I think he's kind of, when you talk to Tyler, check that story out on the site. But when he talked to Tyler, it seemed like he was okay with that. He didn't seem like he was going to be one of those guys that's going to pout if he's not getting playing time. Heck, if you walk into a Alabama backfield that already has 6 backs, you pretty much know what you're getting into. I think he realizes that if he puts his head down, he's got the talent to make a difference, and just it seems like he has the right attitude. And obviously, every back on this whole backfield has the skill set to be a productive SEC back. He's no different than that. So from a what he does standpoint, kind of like a bruiser, kind of like a short yardage, at least from what I've seen, like he's a guy that really could bowl you down.
And he's got to be excited about having this particular offensive lineman come in with him. Damian George, 6'7", 345 pounds, out of Texas. He was only a 3-star, but I bet Alabama is so excited to get him, to mold him, and get him up to speed.
Yeah, you said mold him. I think he's kind of a raw talent. He's also the biggest person they're bringing in. So literally the biggest recruit. He's got, a ton of potential just because of his size. Probably, it's probably coming in a little bit raw, probably needs, some time to develop. But fortunately for him, Alabama's so deep at the offensive line position, he should get that time. Probably another kid you see redshirting. I don't really see him getting on the field that much because, there's just so many people above him right now. But, yeah, he's huge, and like you said, you can't get enough of that.
Jamarian Lathan coming in, 6'3", 290 pounds, also out of Alabama, is another in-state commitment. And I loved Tyler's series talking about the pipelines, because Alabama, Nick Saban does such a great job to make sure that his own backyard is always taken care of. Jamarian Lathan coming in as a defensive tackle, 6'3", 290 pounds, is also a 4-star.
Yeah, 6'3", 290 pounds. Interesting fact, he served as his team's punter, I believe.
I love it.
So yeah, if Alabama still can't find a punter, then maybe they can turn to him. No, I just thought that was funny. I thought of a 6'3", 295. But yeah, like you said, you said with Jamil Burrows, you can't get enough big defensive tackles. Well, here's another guy. He probably could play out on the end position too. So versatile guy, might see the field a little sooner because of that. There's a lot of depth, though. If you're looking for a guy that's going to make an impact next year, I don't know. It just seems like there's a lot of people right now in front of him. But who knows? He's definitely he's a talented kid. And one of these guys, we'll have to see how quickly he picks things up.
Malachi Moore, another in-state commitment coming in out of Trustville. People really fired up about Malachi Moore. Talk about kind of the attributes that he brings to this team.
Malachi Moore is an interesting case because he graduated high school early, and then so he was supposed to be an early enrollee, but then Alabama didn't have enough scholarship spots, so they couldn't. They kind of had to make him wait, and so he just spent the whole time. He's not been in school, so he's been able to kind of soak up. He's been able to soak up or just the defense. I'm not sure how much he's been able to kind of talk with coaches about. But he's been able to soak up the defense, and he's been training with Justin Woodall, former Alabama player. I was talking to Brian Branch for that story that we were mentioning, and he mentioned Malachi Moore as someone that's just he's got the defense down. Brian said that he comes to Malachi every now and then for a question when and that's freshman to freshman. Those two guys are going to be rooming together. So I think he's going to be a guy that hey, the same things we said about Brian Branch. Malachi Moore can play a couple positions, can play, probably even play cornerback if you want. He's probably going to be a guy that's going to play the star in the safety position, or some kind of box safety in the free safety position. But there's opportunities there, and if you're a guy like him where you're soaking up the defense, who knows what you could do and maybe get on the field earlier than not.
Another guy out of Alabama, Quinndarius Robinson, 6'5", 217 pounds. When you talk about, pass rushers coming in, this could certainly be a guy. Plenty of reasons to be really excited about Quinndarius Robinson.
Yeah, another guy coming off of an injury, and he's probably a guy that needs to add size. Of the people that are coming in, there's a few of these pass rushers that are coming in. You want him to put on some weight to play in the SEC. I think Quinndarius is one of them, and so I think that's if you could fill out his frame, I think. But if you look at him, he's got that mold of being a Tim Williams, that kind of just elite pass rusher guy. Once he can put on that weight more, and I think there's nothing. Alabama's going to be able to work wonders with him. And you look at Ballou and Rhea, and then the new Sports Science Center, they're going to do great with him, and I'll also probably help him recovering from his injury as well. So really high ceiling on that kid.
Another 4-star, Timothy Smith, coming out of Florida, 6'4", 315 pounds, great tape. As I said earlier, you can't get enough quality defensive tackles. Tim Smith, certainly a guy, as you mentioned with Quinndarius Robinson, high ceiling. Another guy with an extremely high ceiling in Timothy Smith. I guess all of them, but Timothy Smith.
He's the highest rated guy on this list. I don't have the stats in front of me, but he's a machine as a pass rusher, and highest guy on the list for a reason, and just a really productive guy. If you're talking about guys that could see the field early, we talked about how deep Alabama's defensive line is, but he's such a talent. I wouldn't be totally shocked if he kind of pushed his way through there. A guy that can probably provide some push through the middle as well. You saw that with Christian Barmore. He's a great talent. It's hard to think that he's not going to be on the field in some way or another.
I got the stats: 62 tackles, including 32 stops for a loss and 10 sacks.
32 stops for a loss. So
this guy's, 6'4", 315 pounds. Yeah, you're right. Pushing through. He's going to get on the fields. Last guy that we're going to talk about is Christian Story. 6'2", also out of Alabama, 200 pounds. He's an athlete. What's your take on Christian Story? Where do you think he's going to end up?
I think he's going to end up at safety, although, heck, if things get, pretty dire at quarterback, he's a guy that's played it and set the Alabama record for total yards and touchdowns as well. I think his future, though, is at safety. I think, Saban kind of alluded to that on I think it was early signing day when he signed. So I think, when you look at Christian's story, he's a guy that has all the talent. You're going to find a way to get him on the field, whether it's safety, whether it's special teams, whether it's maybe they find an offensive role. He's a playmaker. That's what when I see him, he's a guy that you just know is going to make plays. Also, his dad is was his high school coach. Yeah. So he's a smart kid. He's going to know the game, shouldn't have a problem picking up the defense. So he's a guy that I think, before he ends his career is going to be a star for Alabama.
These stats, but before we end, I have to read off the stats. He had 175 touchdowns. Okay. Yeah, pretty cool. But think about this. He had 13,000 total yards in high school. Yeah. 13,000. I mean, come on, that's crazy. Christian story, certainly an athlete coming in. Hey, I hope you guys have liked this video. Please hit the thumbs up. Please be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. Alabama football certainly inching closer as the summer enrollees come. We got tons of great content at BamaInsider.com. He's Tony Sukalis, our team writer, together with Tyler Waldrop, who's another team writer, and Andrew Bone, who's our recruiting analyst. We make up BamaInsider.com. Appreciate you guys being here. Be sure and catch more coverage back at BamaInsider.com. And we'll catch you next time for our next video. See you guys.